What entrepreneurship and innovation strategy looks for small states? Today, I'm speaking with Delaware Governor Matt Meyer on Builders Live. Hey, I'm Chris Wink. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Technically. We're a news organization with a focus on entrepreneurship and technology. In January 2025, Matt Meyer became the 76th governor of Delaware. He was a teacher and attorney before that, served State Department as an economic advisor in Iraq. Later, he became an elected official. He has some opinions about entrepreneurship in both his state and others around the country. Governor Meyer, thank you so much for taking the time.
Hey, Chris, it's great to be here. One thing you didn't mention is I studied computer science in college. My first job was working at a high-growth startup outside Chicago. So I get it to an extent.
And I've learned that there's many facets of your bio that I can't even always run through them. So let's try to touch on them. We at Technically are interested in when and how entrepreneurship gets put at the center of economic development. Often is talked about, but not always centered. I was interested to see National Governors Association. I think this year's chairperson, or the last 2 years, is Oklahoma's Kevin Stitt. I think there's an entrepreneurship center. Are you following this National Governors Association focus of entrepreneurship? And I'm curious what that means to you.
Very closely. I was talking to Governor Stitt, the governor of Oklahoma, yesterday. We've traveled together just a couple months ago around to understand entrepreneurial ecosystems, both within the U.S. and outside the U.S. seem to be working very well, and seeing what we can replicate. Listen, the bottom line to me is Governor Stitt is the governor of Oklahoma. That is a ruby red state in political terms.
Yeah.
I am the governor of Delaware, which is a pretty blue state. Governor Stitt and I disagree on a lot of things, but we both understand that there is a national imperative to make sure that the United States is the innovation leader for the globe. Historically, that has been the case. It's really important that we make investments. A lot of it's happening at the state government level to make sure, and the competition among states is really important as well, for us to stand up and say, hey, as a small state, Delaware, we actually can create a dream environment for innovators and entrepreneurs to come start their enterprises, turn their scientific innovation, their process innovation into real jobs, into real growth, into real products and real services for the world. And so our puzzle here in Delaware is, how do we do that better than anybody else? And it's great that the National Governors Association, the nonpartisan association of 50 governors, is a strong partner in coming up with best practices to do just that.
I want to touch on the Delaware specifics, but you hit on a point that we had technically followed quite a bit about. That is how entrepreneurship, science research, commercialized technology has tended to be able to navigate politics. It has tended to be put front and center in both Republican and Democratic districts. You called on that. We are a country in 1776 divided in so many ways. How much do you think of entrepreneurship and economic development as something that you can talk to governors and leaders from different political parties about and find common ground? Is it something you're finding in your own experience?
Well, I'm very lucky because I'm not the governor of just any state. I'm the governor of Delaware. And here, innovation is not just some fad or some marketing slogan. It's in our DNA. A little over 200 years ago, the DuPont family came to the banks of the Brandywine River with a crazy idea. And that is that in America, they can make gunpowder safely and more efficiently than anyone else. It was, so to speak, the TikTok or the Instagram of the day. That they had this innovation. Nobody really believed that what they were doing was possible or credible. And from that beginning, they built what became, by about 50, 60 years ago, the largest company by market cap in the world, right here in Delaware. So innovation and that innovation DNA really runs to the core of who we are in Delaware. And there are things like that, just like DuPont, little over 200 years ago, here on the banks of the Brandywine. On those same banks of the Brandywine, there's exciting stuff going on, groundbreaking science, biopharmaceutical, biotech, innovations in the law and legal and fintech, in ag tech, in logistics tech that's happening right here in Delaware. And my job as governor is to make sure whatever policies, regulations, tax structures we put in place don't inhibit that innovation. In fact, they enable it.
Let me touch on that point. I was looking through your State of the State just a couple of weeks ago. You call out what many of us know Delaware for, a legacy for incorporation, though under threat by some standards. But you called out we need to not just be a state of incorporation, but business creation. Talk to me a bit about what you highlighted in the state of the state and what the Delaware specific message is around not just incorporating businesses, but growing businesses in Delaware.
So I'm cognizant, Chris, that right now we are on social media. That's the way people are seeing this. And so in case you spend too much time on social media, you might think that the Delaware franchise is doing terribly and under terrible threat like never before. Numbers tell a different story. Last year, in the first 10 months of last year, our incorporation numbers, our entity formation numbers were up 14%. Over 280,000 new entities in Delaware. 2/3 of the Fortune 500 companies are incorporated in Delaware. We, in fact, have more entities incorporated today in Delaware than in any other time in our state's history. We're doing better than ever. What I said in the state of the state is we got to figure out how to make sure companies aren't just setting up entities in Delaware and doing business elsewhere. We need to make sure the businesses are actually starting and growing here. And that's a lot. As someone who started a couple companies myself, I know some of that is resources, is making sure you have access to low-cost financing, and friends, families, fools who buy some equity in your idea. You also have to make sure there are partners to help you find a market for your product, partners to nurture you and help you grow, partners to help you with the legal and accounting and some of the back office needs. And so we're working through something called the EDGE program here, and what's now the EDGE 2.0 program, to make sure we're having those wraparound things. Listen, Delaware is so well placed. We're extremely low cost place to do business. We have no sales tax. We have super low property taxes, but you have access to, within a day's drive, nearly a third of the market in terms of population in our whole country. So it's a great place to do business. It's a place where if you run into any regulatory or legal trouble, you can literally pick up the phone, call your governor, call your senator, get access to federal regulation and get it fixed.
Lots there that I want to touch on as great comments come through. The no doubt there's Delaware champions in the world. Let me touch on one thing that I would love to hear how you think about. I have to think a challenge that any governor has with a mixed economy is there's so many different size parts of that economy. We technically are very focused on entrepreneurship, which often gets coded as small business, but for our purposes, we're typically focused on new business. And there is this balance. You have to weigh large employers that make up a portion of Delaware's economy, small business, which is the cultural heart of most places, but new business doesn't always have the same constituent. Kind of famously, it's a lot easier to have a seat at the trade group once you already have an established footprint. I'm wondering how much you think about new business in addition to established employers and the small business that is such a cultural part of Delaware. How do you weigh new alongside big and small?
Look, if you look across the country and in fact across the world, where are the places that have truly created vibrancy, economic vibrancy, that's created products and services for the world? Those are places not that have been able to attract the largest companies with incentives, but those are places that have done the best training a workforce, creating nurturing ecosystems to develop new companies. Within the US, I'm thinking of places like Palo Alto and Silicon Valley, like Austin, like Boston, like the Research Triangle with advanced sciences work. And quite frankly, right here outside Wilmington, when it comes to advanced chemistry and material sciences, these are places where at the core of what we do is making sure that our education system and our training is producing advanced technicians in that field. That's what happened in Northern California with respect to tech, with respect to bits and bytes. That's what's happened in the Research Triangle with biopharma down in North Carolina. And so we're working very hard to make sure that we have a pipeline of workforce. My experience, both in the private sector and now in government, is that companies and in fact investment dollars want to be where the talent is. And so that's true whether it's a big company that's looking to set up a new office and grow, or if it's capital looking to invest in the next great idea, two people with an idea coming out of school and a PhD program or mid-career who have a new technology and want to build on that technology to build product services for the world and to employ a lot of people.
Let's build an idea of ecosystem. We use that metaphor in economic development strategy intentionally. The metaphor is meant to imply, like in a biological ecosystem, there are many different sized species that interact with each other, sometimes without even knowing. You have large species and small, many pieces that interact. Tell me a little bit about you know, in the executive chair for a small state in a very dense region, as you called out. Its strength is being surrounded by so many customers. What do you think of as Delaware's strengths and obstacles in kind of growing its own entrepreneurial ecosystem as a relatively geographically small state?
Well, look, Chris, I think hands down the best place to start a new enterprise today is in Delaware. I mentioned the proximity to market. It's also an extremely educated workforce. A few years ago, we had the highest per capita number of PhDs in the country here in the northern part of the state in Newcastle County. But it's not just that. It's also that you can tap into a knowledge base. People would say, oh, wait, how do you scale from a small state? That's fine. You can start something, maybe get 30, 40, 100 employees. But how do you scale when there just aren't that many people? We are at the epicenter of the Mid-Atlantic, which is the largest population center in our country, with Philadelphia workforce, Baltimore workforce, New York, New Jersey, DC, in fact, all the way up to Boston. If you look at the top research universities, not just in our state with University of Delaware and Delaware State University, but in the region, you can draw on a tremendous amount of talent. And we're finding people who really want to live here. There's a low cost of living. There's a high quality of life. There are great parks and public library system. And especially with the divisions in the country right now, when you have a pro-business government that's really looking at quality of life, that's being inclusive, we want a community that includes everyone. There are quite a few Americans who are looking to live
around the country. There are governors that happily are putting more entrepreneurship and innovation at the forefront. I'm curious what your advice would be for the entrepreneurial or economic development organizers in other states. What is fair for them to challenge their governor to do or prioritize? What can a governor really do to boost entrepreneurship, and what is out of scope?
Well, I think the first recommendation to them is that they should come to Delaware, because if they're according to Ricky Bobby,
well done, Governor.
Ricky Bobby says if you're not first, you're last. We're the first state, and we're first in entrepreneurship, going back to the DuPont days. But I mean, jokes aside, I think one thing is a lot of people in my business don't seem to totally get, to be frank, the difference between entrepreneurship and innovation and small business. And for me, in my mind, those are two fundamentally different things. No one more important than the other. If you're in the laundromat business and your great grandparent started a laundromat and it's been passed down from generation to generation, and now you have 4 laundromats, and you're dealing with various struggles of the economy, of tariffs and things like that, the problems and issues you're dealing with are completely different than someone, who's got some idea, maybe has access to a little bit of funding, has all these gaps in terms of, I know how to do science, I know how to do bits and bytes, I know how to write some software, I know maybe how to use AI, I have no idea how to do accounting, I have no idea what legal structure I need, and things like that. So it's two completely different things. So making sure that you really hone in on entrepreneurship, what it is, what language people are speaking, and what are the actual barriers when someone's interested in starting a new enterprise. Sometimes it's capital, but it's not always capital. Those deploying capital, and I, back in a prior life as a lawyer, advised investors investing, they would always say there's so many people out there with ideas, but there aren't enough good investable ideas. Investors are looking for something, and really honing in on what that is and making sure you're removing barriers. I believe it's it's really, you want to create as much supply as possible. I don't know which of the amazing ideas that come across our desk or are coming out of universities or coming out of our banks and financial institutions. I don't really know which of those is going to thrive and turn into the next big product service for the world, the next big idea that's going to produce thousands or 10,000s or 100,000 jobs. I don't really know, but our goal is to create a playing field, an environment where anyone who comes with an idea can have a platform to access capital, access resources. And we focus a lot on that. And we talk about ecosystem. That's really what I think about. Think of yourself like an entrepreneur who, with a blank sheet of paper, is trying to start something. How can government be most helpful to removing barriers, enabling connections so that that individual or that innovator can thrive?
Workforce came up there famously. If you ask 5 economists about their opinions of AI's impact on the workforce in the coming years, you get 10 answers. What can you bring to your own strategy for workforce preparedness for Delaware, not knowing where the economy might go?
Yeah, I mean, it's challenging. No doubt it's challenging, and politically it's challenging. When I go out on the street, there is serious fear about artificial intelligence, not just on the street, in my own family, in my own extended family, about what that's going to do to various jobs and various careers, entire sectors of the economy. A few thoughts. One is that when I was much younger, like in a student, there was a lot of fear that computers would end entire industries and that there would be no jobs left for humans. And what has happened in the ensuing decades is that there have actually been more jobs created by computers and computing. Similarly, when the web came on board, when World Wide Web started, people were like, wait a second, these entire industry, what's going to happen to travel agents, right? All these entire industries that are going away. And yes, there's a transition period, but ultimately the resulting economy produces more jobs and more career opportunities than less. I'm not going to make any promises with AI. We don't know where it's going. But my hope is that here in Delaware, if we do the right workforce training, if we develop a workforce that truly understands how to be a job creator in an AI world, that ultimately is going to be good, not just for Delaware, not just for our country, but good for humanity. That we need to figure out how to leverage these technologies to make the quality of life better, to make our communities more diverse and inclusive, and ultimately create careers that make it easier, not harder for working people to feed their families.
What's your boldest contribution to boosting entrepreneurship, innovation, Delaware's economic future? What are you putting your eggs in?
Our boldest contribution, my wife's an emergency room doctor, so I feel a little biased towards the health space. That right now there are companies like Insight and Prelude Therapeutics that are truly saving lives. I think that technology and innovation is exciting. To be honest, it's fun. There are a few things in my life that have given me greater joy than starting a company, having an idea in my head, ultimately turning it into a product that employed people, enabled people to feed their families, to build homes, to educate their children. That's tremendously satisfying as an entrepreneur, as an innovator. It's a little bit extra when the product you're developing is actually saving lives, taking cancers, taking sickening diseases that have crippled humanity for years and years and generations. And through advanced science and through the human brain, we've developed products, chemistry that can eliminate that. The fact that that's happening right in Delaware, we're doing anything we can to make sure that those technologies are enabled, either by taking large public companies like Merck and Insight, Prelude that are in Delaware and enabling them to grow, or incentivizing, creating opportunities for new innovators who have a new chemistry that may work or may not work. Come to Delaware, come try it out. We're going to be an enabling environment, enabling to get you the financing you need and the support ecosystem you need to grow.
I'm going to lose you here in a minute, but I've got to ask, are you using any AI tools yet? Is that something that you're playing with at all?
I do every day. In fact, every one of my answers, Chris, is written by AI. My mouth is just moving. Yeah, but it's we call it in the office, we call it Matt GBT.
I like that. But do you even have the opportunity to? Because I know you're meeting with people so much. Do you get the chance to play with any of the tools? And do you feel like you should?
We use it. I use it. A lot of what I do is analyze problems. I saw an interview with President Obama back in 2009, a few months after he was sworn in as president. And the interviewer asked him, "What's the hardest problem you've had to solve so far?" And he said something, there are a couple million federal employees. If they're easy problems, they never get to my desk as president. I only get the hard problems. I often feel, not to the extent President Obama did, but I often feel that way as governor, that imagine going through your day and on any given day, you have 5, 25, 105 different problems. And every one of those problems has two good, arguments on different sides. And I use AI to help break down research, understand, whether it's Perplexity or Claude or ChatGPT, Gemini. I often run a single problem set through multiple AI platforms, not to make a decision for me, but just to gather information and make informed decisions.
Last thing, and I'll let you go. It's 1776, 250 years since the signing of the Declaration. No one doubts that we're in a moment of national indecision. What are you doing? How are you processing this moment as an American, as a Delaware resident, as a governor? What does 250 years ago mean to you? And this being a conversation around technology and entrepreneurship, what do you think we need to do to make sure we get to the next 250 years?
Well, Chris, one thing that's often not talked about is shortly after 1787 in our Constitution, or really after the Articles of Confederation, and it kind of our country was not succeeding. It was 13 different fiefdoms. One reason historians give for the success of America is there was an economic boom into the 1790s and early 1800s. And I think that the political dislocation is often very closely associated with economic dislocation. As I mentioned at the outset, Governor Stitt and I disagree on a lot of things, but like many Americans, we believe that if we can succeed in the kind of things that you, Chris, and technically are talking about every day, it's a national imperative, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, we have to make sure we're leading in innovation. It's a way that America really has a superpower, is on the backs of innovation, on the backs of saying that, hey, wherever you're from in the world, if you have a great idea that you can turn into a product or service that's going to benefit the world, you come here to America. We're going to enable you. We're going to surround you with the right people. We're going to surround you with the right education systems and training colleges to make sure that your idea not only thrives, but it thrives and it grows here. And I think that's a fundamentally American idea that's not talked about enough. I know Governor Stitt is talking about it. The only problem with Governor Stitt is they're second in Oklahoma to Delaware, which is first.
Matt Meyer, Governor Matt Meyer, thank you so much for your time and the opportunity to have the conversation.
Great. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate it.
Next time, everyone.